There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Alright, welcome to Media Mothership, broadcasting out of Edge Radio Studios here in Hobart, Tasmania, Nipaluna. We're also streaming, of course, as always, on digital via edgeradio.org.au, as well as YouTube and Twitch. You can just find us by searching Media Mothership. Media Mothership. Do you often think of motherships? Do motherships ever come up in conversation? B.A. Zeke, of course, my co-host B.A. Zeke. I am PhD Craig.
What up, B.A. Zeke here. I don't think so.
Mothership.
Maybe if we're talking about some sort of sci-fi movie or something.
Yes.
Something like that. But I don't think something I can think of where Mothership comes up, really.
Yeah. D-Day landings. You got those ships off the coast with all the landing craft that come out of them. Yeah. So this is Media Mothership, where we look at how media shapes our understanding of the world around us, our understanding as we were bunkered in and sheltered and requiring only media representations of the world. Very, very Plato's cave of us. Plato's cave, a famous analogy of someone chained, looking at the flickering lights, and only being able to judge reality through the shadows that he sees illuminated on this wall, that they then determine what the world is that they can't see. And then Plato's cave is this, classic case of how media isn't transparent. That, those flickering shadows you see may look like you're surrounded by elongated tall people, where in actual fact they are normal-sized, but the candle has created that.
That's
or,
right.
if you're good with shadow puppets, you'd think there's a lot of crocodiles.
Could be, crocodile, dogs, pack of dogs.
Plato's Cave. There you go, people. Look that up. So, yes, I'm, as always, your host, PhD Craig, and B.A. Zeke is paneling again this week.
That's right. I am a paneler. Many panels here.
Today's show, we're going to explore the next 5 minutes of House on Haunted Hill. So we're up to minute 20 to 25, I want to say. Yep. If you've been following our social media posts on Instagram, you would already see the image that I think was the most arresting image in terms of the 5 scales of fear we've been exploring based on the article Analysis of Camera Work in Horror Movies. For those that don't know, we've been watching 5 minutes of the 1959 classic movie House on Haunted Hill, starring Vincent Price, and analyzing it through the analysis of camera work in horror movies so that we can really scare people this Halloween on radio through our knowledge of camera angles.
That's right.
Doesn't translate to a audio medium, sadly, but still people can imagine our skills.
That's right.
So we'll be exploring that next 5 minutes in terms of the camera angles that are used to effectively create what I'm thinking is the first moment of horror in that film. We'll also look at some, I guess it's Halloween-y news, right? So a bit of Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. And then pig butchering, the phrase pig butchering, and how that can be applied in a digital space. That's rather unpleasant. And then we're going to try this new thing in today's show where we're going to wrap the show up by talking about this conversation cues called rose, thorn, and banana. Zeke, have you ever come across someone saying, give me your rose, thorn, banana?
No, I would sort of look weirdly at anybody who said that.
What do you think? What kind of smoothie is this?
Yeah,
what kind of
going on?
sandwich?
Yeah, exactly.
Rose, thorn, banana. It's a kind of conversation prop or prompt that's meant to create discussion where we're appropriating it. So that we'll be wrapping the shows up to talk about our rose. That's our pop culture for this week, which has made us thankful or happy. Then the thorn, a difficult or sad pop culture event this week. And finally, the banana, the pop culture thing that made us laugh. So I launched this on Zeke just before we went to air, so he's got a full 40 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Think of something.
Got some great things lined up. Maybe.
Great.
If I can think of them.
So keep listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3. It's now 5:08 p.m. on Friday, the 14th of October. Let's play I'll play on my computer a short musical piece if we're all queued up for this. Yep.
For sure.
Hold on. Is that... Is it playing?
No, I don't think... Oh, no. There you go.
There. Yep. See, I like testing the equipment.
Yeah, see, I had it up. I just didn't have it on.
That's fine. That, of course, was Bluesy Vibes Sting by Doug Maxwell.
Good. I like it.
It's a Collective Commons piece, which we'll use throughout the entire show.
We will play it to death.
As we go from one story to another. So the first story I want to talk about, I like because I'm watching with my daughter as part of her media education, the Nightmare on Elm Street films. She's of age now, where that's not traumatizing.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's been really interesting going back into that franchise, which really launched, I guess, in the 80s, the slasher genre. You had, of course, your Halloweens by John Carpenter, Friday the 13th, and then Freddy Krueger came and was so innovative at the time with Wes Craven directing with this idea of the dreamscape. So we've watched the third one, Dream Warriors, which in the Nightmare on Elm Street fan culture, many people consider to be the high points of the film franchise. They see Dream Warriors as really clever because it kind of introduces a little bit more world building around how to battle Freddy. And these Dream Warriors, as the title suggests, have their own powers. Anyway, what's really interesting is that there's a little bit of news on Nightmare on Elm Street with the main actress who starred in that first Nightmare on Elm Street film with one of the first roles that Johnny Depp had, actually, as the boyfriend. This was Heather Langenkamp, and she's saying she wants one final fight with Freddy Krueger. It's an interesting piece. This piece is coming out of Geek Tyrant, and at the moment, Langenkamp is on the press rounds, spruiking her current role in the Netflix-produced, Mike Flanagan-directed The Midnight Club, which I've not seen yet, but I'm very interested in it. And inevitably, the question comes up what her plans are for the Freddy Krueger space, right? Will she ever do a Nightmare on Elm Street film? Because other actresses who have appeared in the slasher films, most notably Jamie Lee Curtis, who starred in Halloween, has kind of revisited that role, and very much Jamie Lee Curtis, and certainly in the first film, Heather Langenkamp, are part of that cinematic language of horror films referred to as the final girl trope, where you have one final survivor at the end of your film, right? It could be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, or Halloween, as the lone survivor. And at the time, there was a lot of debate whether how progressive this was, why the final girl trope existed. It's since been kind of decontextualized in great films like Cabin in the Woods, by the director whose name we won't mention because of scandals around him.
Oh, there you go.
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon.
Yep. So, have you seen Nightmare on Elm Street?
I'm not too sure. If I have, it would have been a long time ago.
It has been remade, but poorly so, or at least critically. I've not seen the remake, but it was not considered good. So anyway, she was interviewed saying if Nancy, her character, could fight Freddy one last time, she's saying she would really like to do that. And she refers specifically to having watched some of these reboots or cold reboots where they bring back existing actors, cast members, to play a role in their new version of it. So she refers, to Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, saying that was a really clever way and she'd like to be brought back in there. So, Nightmare on Elm Street, you excited about that?
No.
The one bit of potential media news that I did come across today, which really did interest me, was one of my favorite childhood movies, The Black Hole. It's a real deep cut there. That's around the time of the original Star Wars film. Disney tried to jump in on the science fiction bandwagon, and they developed this incredibly high concept film called The Black Hole, which had enormous amounts of money thrown at it. It has, I believe, the first kind of digitally animated sequence in its opening scene, as you see this 3D grid of a funnel, a la Black Hole. It's actually it tells the story of, in the far future, a kind of explorers on a scientific mission that come across this supposedly derelict science vessel that had been lost years before, and there begins this kind of haunted house in space movie. Black Hole, great movie, has great designs, was largely panned when it was released. It was modestly successful, never got made a sequel. Tom Cruise allegedly has been earmarked as potentially being involved in that. Okay. The article was going on about how unlikely that is, given that he's got to survive his first filmed spacewalk. Right, the articles around Tom Cruise saying that in a future film project or a near upcoming film project, he's going to be the first non-astronaut to do a spacewalk for some film project.
Crazy and needs to
That's his
do
identity.
everything in.
Seems but Maverick, Top Gun Maverick has really repositioned him. I mean, I don't think he really has had low points apart from the Oprah Winfrey couch and the Shadow of Scientology. He really hasn't had low points in his career, really.
Not really. And I guess most of all that stuff isn't necessarily that bad. It's just a bit weird. But I guess that's all you can say about him. He's a bit weird, which is probably true. But he is a good actor. So
yeah. I enjoyed watching him in Maverick.
Oh yeah, Top Gun Maverick. I'm still yet to see it. Apparently, it's really good.
It is good, yeah. All right, so let's move on, because I want to get through the House on Haunted Hill discussion while we're doing it. So as you know, we've been doing the shots. So my analysis of the 5 minutes kind of broke down quite a lot of shots. For those that remember that's playing along at home, in the previous scene, we had the two main actors so far, or protagonists, Lance and Nora, two of the people that have been invited over to this house to see if they can survive the night. And if they can, Vincent Price's character, the wealthy guy, will give them thousands of dollars. Yep. In 1959 money, probably a lot. So Lance has gone through a door and the door's suddenly been closed. So
disappeared.
Yeah. Then it breaks out with this great scene. Well, great for this movie. A scene where we have this ghostly figure appear, and that gets referred to and shouted out as ghost. I'll play some audio from it in a sec, but just to bring people up to speed, so we have that ghost scene. Then, I'm saying that very much positions that first horror moment, where
definitely meant to be a horror moment.
Yep. So this is a moment, according to the 5 stages of fear. Horror is where the horror stage is characterized by suddenness and fast pace. It's not really sudden or fast-paced, but it's a bit slow. Although, her, is on a dolly or something, she gets wheeled forward, right, supernaturally. The fear is directed towards a present danger. Well, I think that's there, in terms of suddenly we have this clearly unearthly person.
I guess you could argue that, once she's revealed, that is horror, but maybe up until that it was...
terror.
Terror?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's building up, and then... it's there, and you're like, whoa. And
this was that payoff scene, that we have this setup of anxiety and anticipation, and the payoff being the horror scene. And we'll play a little bit, because I do like the soundscape that was created to convey this. I think it will work well over radio. It's really heavy on what I want to refer to as the War of the Worlds sound. I don't know if you watched the 1950s War of the Worlds color movie. Yep. And it has this great design for the UFOs, which kind of emit this pulsing electric sound. For some reason, that was the sound they went for to indicate otherworldliness. They went kind of high electronica
Maybe
in
it's
1959.
crossover. It's all connected.
Yeah, shared world, shared universe. I like that. So they set that up, and then it kind of lays very heavily on with a bit of organ music. Yeah, well, let's play that now. I feel like I've hyped it. So, scene is top of the 20 minutes. She's stuck in this room. Lance is gone.
Yep, door's shut.
Then we hear this music. And imagine in the theater of the mind, for those listening at home, you're in a basement, and this is the music. Well, diegetically, she doesn't hear this music.
No, but this is how it feels.
As an audience member, yeah. All right, here we go. Oh, it's so good. Right. And you can tell, probably people listening at home have an image of the ghost because of those audio cues. They're kind of da 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 da. Yeah. But it did have that kind of warbling, electro pulsing sound at the start. So then we see, this kind of grey-haired female apparition appear.
Yes, slowly wheel out.
Slowly get wheeled out. And it's a bit. How are you feeling?
Well, so I did obviously you're watching. I wasn't really that scared, but you're watching it, and then it slowly wheels out, and it took forever to me for the lady to wheel out, and then she came out, and I did laugh out loud. So
for me, it was like a eureka moment. It's like, yeah, here we are. We've made it to a moment of horror. Moment.
Yeah, I definitely thought, I was like, this is a horror moment, but this is. Then I laughed at it, and I was like, because I'm not really that scared. But I did understand that this were two audiences. I imagine at the time would have been very terrified.
Yes. So yeah, we have this great scene where it hasn't been explained, but she does refer to it after that scene as like Lance is gone and I saw a ghost. Everyone kind of just blases over the ghost mention, right? But Lance is gone. Oh my gosh! So then they race down and try to find Lance. Of course, the door now is open, and then we go to a scene where some of the background characters are talking about how immediately can I get my money? I want my money. And what's wonderful is they find Lance, right? That the door's open. Lance is there. He's got like concussion.
Yeah, I believe he has a little bit of blood on his forehead as well.
Yeah. But there is this beautiful scene which I want to play next. In terms of, one of the things we've been picking up is kind of, the political incorrectness of this film. How it doesn't quite work. So what I want to play here is the scene where basically you have the doctor character, Vincent Price, and Lance and Nora, and the doctor starts talking about Nora, right? Vincent Price's character is saying, what was the ghost like, right? He's really curious all of a sudden. He's like, oh, what was the ghost like? And then the doctor is just classic 1959 dismissal of crazy woman. So,
hysteria.
Yeah, let's see this. Oh, hold on. I'll play it on the computer, which is hooked up. All right, yeah. So here we go. Yeah, they found Lance, and here we go. I think I've built this up really nicely.
When you came in, you said something about a ghost.
There was something.
What did it look like?
Well, it was wearing a black thing that went all the way to the floor.
Weren't you a little frightened at the time?
Well, yes.
That, Mr. Loren, is hysteria.
Weren't you a little frightened at the time? Well, yes. Okay, crazy woman. Hysteria.
It's crazy, well, because it said, obviously it's within his character, because in the beginning, when Vincent Price was talking about him, he was saying he's very... Well, that was basically his attitude. And obviously when they found Lance, and he said to him that he went in there and he was like, oh, there's nothing that you could have ran into in this. It was an empty closet. basically. And he was like, the only way you could have done this is
True.
if you ran into the into
wall.
this brick wall or cement wall. And he's like, you didn't do that, did you?
What's interesting, yeah. Like he's doubting. It's interesting because I think he kind of doubts the sanity. Like here, he's kind of throwing shade on the female character, just saying, wow, there we go. She's hysterical. She said in a non-hysterical way that she was a little bit frightened, therefore hysterical. Then Vincent Price does ask, kind of like, isn't that sexist? In a way that 1959 does. He does, well, what about Lance? Is he hysterical? So we'll hear what that goes. That's a great scene.
Yeah. But then, Doctor, how do you explain what happened to Lance? Was that hysteria, too?
He doesn't answer, but you can tell he goes, no, Lance is a man.
Yeah, so something like that, or it's just that he can't... Because there is no way that Lance... Like, it's not hysteria, because he was injured, yet he ran into an empty cupboard or an empty closet.
Yes.
So it's just like, well, what happened to him? There's no possible way that... How would he be hysterical?
Yeah.
That? I guess, yeah, unless maybe he was so hysterical he ran into a wall. I don't know. But
it is interesting. I mean, I do think there's a kind of, there's an interesting kind of hegemony that's occurring here in terms of a 1959 audience unproblematically watching this scene and thinking, oh yeah, well, I can see why the Doctor his discourse is very rational here in terms of dealing with the woman and then dealing with the man.
Yeah, he's very a man of science, of a doctor.
All right, well, the other scene I want to play is, it's another scene I quite enjoyed, which is just fun because I think the dialogue is instantly quotable. It's the guy throughout the film that's been really worried and terrified all the time, Watson Pritchard, who's the kind of like ghost.
The more I watch or the more I listen to him throughout this, I actually really like him too.
Really great actor.
Him and Vincent Price, really good.
True, yeah, they kind of eat the scenery when they're on stage or in shot. Their performances, totally 100% committed and kind of a little hamming it up, but hamming it up just enough so that you're kind of like, wow.
Yeah, and even
delicious.
though obviously people at home can't watch, we can only listen to the audio as we play it, but his facial expressions, really good.
Yeah, very expressive. So in this scene, they've just found Lance and they can't kind of figure out what happened to him. And so then a character who's been doing the ghost tour up until this point, been talking about all the grisly murders, says this great line of dialogue.
Who? He did. I wonder why they didn't kill him. Who? He didn't bump his head. They hit him.
They?
Yeah. We've got that wonderful kind of pheromone in the background. I wonder why they didn't kill him. And, at this point, everyone else is just kind of really neutral in their conversations with the kind of bizarreness that's occurring. It is very 1959.
Weirdly calm. Kind of.
Yeah, so what we have is this. So it ends with kind of scene where we were talking last week about the survivor overtone that's there. Like if you're in a situation like this, you want to match up with someone and then make alliances, right? So clearly in this film, you've got Adam and Eve characters, your Lance and Nora who are matching up, and he's whispered to Nora to go down into the basement again, where he kind of got concussed, to check it out.
He stole 2 candles.
Yes, they grabbed 2 candles.
In such a great way. I love that.
Very
when
sneakily.
He went over and then just grabbed them out in such a... I don't know, it wasn't really sneaky in any way.
Well, you can see the video game, right? You've got your controller there, and you just be really careful, and it's kind of like almost a video game
Candlesticks
scene.
acquired.
Yeah, that's right. Little thing. Yeah. Congratulations, you unlocked this prize. You've got to collect all the candlesticks from this. Yeah, we could do a video game of.
That's true.
Yeah, because what is it? Assassin's Creed. The first one has that horrible submission where you're meant to collect all the feathers.
Yeah.
This one could be collect all the candles.
Mm.
And people would get it.
Definitely.
So they're down there, and then he starts knocking on the walls, and then you hear what's going to set up the next 5 minutes, possibly, which is this odd sound.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it there. So a bit of suspense, a bit of kind of what it was traveling through, I think, quite nicely in terms of script writing, was this kind of build-up and payoff, and then recovery and background. We pretty much went through, from terror from the previous 5 minutes, then started with horror, then recovery as the characters, she ran upstairs, and then they all started to unpack the situation and recover from it, and then background as we have a bit more character development. And then it's setting up again a bit of terror, right? Where it's knocking on the thing and he goes, oh, that's a bit weird. Or possibly recovery. Probably recovery still.
Recovery. Maybe recovery or something. Or just background and then starts to sort of begin to climb again.
Yeah. Well, recovery is the realization of something that gives hope to solve a problem or the threat that is not a threat anymore. So that ghost has disappeared, but he's trying to solve that problem of why did I get concussed and what's going on here. So they're looking for solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the next 5 minutes of House on Haunted Hill. How are you feeling with this?
It's good. I did, obviously, as I said, I did laugh at the reveal of the lady. However, I did watch a little bit ahead by like a minute. And the next scene coming up didn't scare me, but much scarier than what we just watched before.
Well, yeah, on the YouTube posts under House on Haunted Hill 1959 are a number of people that referred to a specific scene as giving them childhood terrors. So,
could
I'm
be.
wondering if this is it. I wonder if this is it. Yep, there we go. There's a bit of anticipation, bit of terror building. Shall we, I want to recycle some of our Vox Pops.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're great tunes. So this is the first piece from Taz Pop South interviewing some cosplayers. Yeah, let's give that a listen. This will only go for a minute or two.
I don't know whether we've got Emerald.
Oh, yeah.
Play that one.
Here I am at Ground Zero. So if you could say what your name is and what you're cosplaying as.
My name is Emerald L. King, and I'm wearing an alternate version of Marluxia from Kingdom Hearts.
It's perfect. And you're not only Emerald, you're Dr. Emerald.
I am Dr. King, yes. For my various sins, I work in Japanese literature and East Asian popular culture.
All right, so off the top of your head right now, it's a high-pressure question. What pop culture first pops into your mind right now?
Oh, my brain just emptied. Inuyasha.
It's a classic. It's a good choice. It says a lot about you.
Very 90s, very retro. And the con theme is, of course, retro.
You're the first person that's reminded me of that. Yeah. Okay, well, it was my big surprise for today. And what's your biggest surprise so far today?
I was really expecting the con vibe to be so different, but speaking of retro, it feels like an OG first generation anime con from like 2007, 2008, 2009. There's a group of us who, this is the first con that we've been to in Tasmania because it's been the first con for a couple of years. But it feels like coming home. It feels like something that we went to, 10 years ago when we were running around being filthy, filthy weeps.
I think you're totally right there, actually. It's interesting, the combination of COVID and a new venue and, a sense that this is like a mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s con again or starting it up again. It's got a nice vibe to it. Yeah, I think you've put your finger right on it. Okay, so final question is, it's a really tricky one. And most people haven't been able to answer it. Is there such a thing as Tasmanian pop culture?
Yes. There is such a thing as Tasmanian pop culture. The thing that comes to my mind, it's very obscure, but there used to be a comic that was drawn in the back of Togatus in like the early 2000s. And it was based around a guy who worked on one of the fish ponds. And it was kind of like his Hobart After Dark experiences, walking through Hobart, what he saw in the waterfront. So that kind of handmade zine culture. And I think we see a lot of crossover in that for events like this. So there's a lot of handmade stuff, there's a lot of grassroots stuff. And yeah, there is something that's very retro and I want to say adolescent in the sense that, there's still potential here, whereas maybe some of the mainland cons are a bit more corporate, a bit more adult. Yeah.
That's perfect. Emerald, thank you so much for being part of Media Mothership for the day. You have a great convention. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Hey, you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. It's Friday the 14th of October. It's 5:33 p.m. I'm PhD Craig, joined by BA Zeke. What's up?
Yo, what up?
What up?
We're back.
And this is Media Mothership, where we explore how media shapes our understanding of the world around us. And that was a short Vox Pop talking with Dr. Emerald King about her experiences cosplaying on location in situ, Vox popping it up with us at Toast Pop South a few weeks ago. I want to go into one little piece of news I came across. The last bit of news is this ABC article a few weeks ago, and the headline is, "Inside the Pig Butchering Scams, Seeing Thousands Trafficked into Cyber Slavery." Really evocative title. And it's talking about various people throughout Asia and Pacific countries who have been deceived into fantastic jobs, or what they thought were fantastic jobs, but ended up being basically cyber slavery to do various scams on people. So, I'm sure there's been a lot of news coverage about various scams around. The
Optus thing and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Although it was, scam-ish, it was a hack. But
Yeah. This is more those kind of telephone calls you'll receive saying, you've got a virus on your computer and you need to download this thing now and you need this money to do it or something like that. So basically, it's an interesting article that's, again, talking about the victims themselves that are sometimes involved in being forced to pay off debts where they thought they were going into like a modeling job or something, and it ended up being working in one of these telephone scam booths. What really caught my eye, was this phrase in the headline called pig butchering. And it turns out that this is a translation of a Chinese term, shazupan, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and draws its name from the concept of fattening up an animal for slaughter. Ugh. What a evocative theatre of the mind moment. Pig butchering. Yeah, so they'll refer to their targets. Obviously in practice, these scammers are following, as the article points out, these really sophisticated scripts, which they read from verbatim, and they earn, so-called the marks, trust, and then encourage them to download a fake thing. Could be an investment app or something. And that concept, from the scammer's point of view, is called pig butchering, right? They're fattening up the pig and then to butcher them. Ugh.
Terrible. The only it's very interesting. I know in I think gambling and casinos and stuff like that, they have the term of the whale.
Yep. That's also in a lot of pay-to-play mobile app games and so forth. Where, how do you define the whale?
The whale is, so I just define it as basically you have all of the different, I suppose you could call them fish and stuff who just swim in and out, but they're all very small, so you're not going to get much out of them. But the whale is the really big. If you were going to, I suppose, catch it and eat it or whatever, it's the one that's really big, it's really fat. There's obviously whales are quite blubbery and all that kind of thing. They have a lot of money, basically. And the people who are willing to, there'll be a good meal, a good amount
It's
of
interesting,
money
isn't it? Yeah, that phrasing, because I think, for some people, they want to be a whale in those game spaces. They're happy to splash out a lot because it means and these are often happening in these kind of free-to-play games, which have some monetized component within them. And whales are individuals who will basically spend above and beyond what most normal people spend. Normally, it's a small percentage of the player base, in the single digits, that will be investing so heavily. But they'll over-invest, and the idea is that, it'll give them some advantage or bragging rights. And
I always view the whales in gambling as the people who are really... they're the people who they shouldn't be gambling, really, because they're spending too much money.
Well, yeah. Look, I mean, to many people that are using that language, I guess, as well as the way it's discussed, yeah, it's often talked about in terms of a disproportionate behavior, a behavior that is coded very negatively, greed or waste, which you don't associate with whales per se. It's interesting language there, which is why I'm thinking maybe that terminology is also one which is bantied around because, if you get accused of being a whale, it can be a flex, right? Yeah, I'm going to whale in this game. I love it, and I'm going to whale.
That's true.
And many people talk about, like, some of these communities, they'll talk, they'll praise the whales in terms of, well, it's because of the whales in this game that we can play it for free. So it's this weird kind of cult type behavior where they're not worshipping whales, right? Or that mechanic they'll see problems with, but nevertheless they'll be thankful that the game's free, and they'll recognize the economy that's being able to sustain this game, because that, obviously people need to get paid for their labor, and shareholders want to see profits within what they're investing in. So whales, in that logic, are underpinning this space. But of course, I think it is a mechanic which can prey upon particular, if you were going psychologically into this, maybe a psychologist would say hardwired behavioral aspects of the mind which are being inappropriately exploited. Be interesting.
No, that's what genuinely what I think about when people use the whale. I always refer to it, obviously, the people who run the game or the casinos and everything, I always refer to them as whales, which seems like a very, I don't know, they are using it, I think, in a very predatory
rather than
aspect.
Pigs. See, this is an interesting thing. Rather than talking about these people as pigs.
Although maybe in Asian casinos, maybe they use the term pig, I don't know.
That they're fattening up.
Because if this is a term that's used in like China and stuff, although I'm not sure what the gambling
much more derogatory phrase, and it does show, I think, the power balance that they perceive themselves as having in scammer relationships. That they are the power holders. And it's interesting, on YouTube there's a whole mini genre of people trying to combat scammers by addressing that power imbalance. And many people watch those YouTubes, like the glitter bomb guy and so forth, because of the sense of the powerlessness many people have in those spaces, and the fact, that sadly that pig fattening concept it dominates. I think it's quite a brutal logic, which I think is quite real. All right, well, shall we wrap up and try a little experiment this week with a little let's play a little sting.
Let's do it.
Almost feels like we're in another room now.
Yeah.
All right, here we are in the lounge room now.
Maybe we are.
Maybe, we quickly raced to the next set. So Rose, Thorn, Banana, as I discussed, is a concept where we go around talking about the rose, the pop culture this week, which we're really thankful for, we're enjoying. The thorn, the difficult or sad pop culture events. And the banana, the popular culture, which made us really laugh this week. So I'll start it off because I know Zeke hasn't yet had time to come up with anything. My rose is, at the moment, I'm learning this really great board game called Australia. It's got a Z in it, so AUZ, Australia. It's also had an expansion called Tasmania with a Z. Unsurprising. And the Z refers to the fact that there are zombies in this game. It's a really fascinating board game. It's considered to be a lot of fun. And it's in this world where basically Cthulhu had dominated the Earth from I think it's the 1100s or something up until the 1800s. So it's this alternate world, alternate fiction space, much like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or these other spaces which create these fictional what-if questions. And so I'm really enjoying that. And part of it was deep diving into it, looking at the sources of this board game. And it actually comes from a Neil Gaiman short story. Called A Study in Emerald, which was a short story he wrote for an anthology which was, various authors creating a short story in the world of Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes space, or H.P. Lovecraft, the Cthulhu space. And, Neil Gaiman wrote this really fascinating article, which I managed to track down. We'll put a post to it because it's on his website. It's on Gaiman's website, called A Study in Emerald. And it's meant to be a kind of Sherlock Holmes meets Cthulhu mashup.
Obviously, the title, A Play on A Study in Scarlet.
That's right, the first Sherlock Holmes story, Study in Scarlet. So it kind of, it's a kind of pastiche, a homage, a kind of what-if experiment. So you can go out and read that right now. I'm delighted to read the first 2 pages. I'll be looking forward to reading, hopefully, the rest of it. But it's interesting, this board game having this transmedia spread from a short story. So the board game designer pays tribute to a study in Emerald, and in fact he'd previously done a board game based on that short story.
There you go.
And now he's expanded on to look at basically the idea that the Sherlock Holmes has been able to overcome with others Cthulhu presence in Europe and the US, and now humanity's suddenly out of the boot of the Cthulhu overlords, the old ones, and they're starting to explore now, and they come across Australia, this new undiscovered country until then, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, I think this is set, and they're trying to now, find resources because the rest of the earth has been kind of Cthulhu'd up, kind of destroyed. But then they stumble across a Cthulhu hideout that basically the Cthulhu old ones have been biding their time
in Australia.
Yeah, and then there's a whole board game about that. So yeah, I'm learning how to play that, and it's shaping up to be quite a bit of fun. You play board games?
I do, yeah. I quite like board games. My favourite, maybe this will serve us as even though I didn't play any of this week or anything, but my favourite board game that I have is Wingspan.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
It's really good. It's just basically a game where you just play with birds, basically. You have cards that have all the different kind of birds. There's different expansions, so the main ones are like US birds, I think. And then you can get expansions for like European birds. You can get ones for Oceanic, which is like Asia.
Yeah.
Australia. And you basically just play birds, lay eggs, consume bird food and stuff.
And there's a new one set Asian birds. I think got a new expansion just around the corner. But that is fantastic, and you can pick it up locally too. Wingspan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got mine. Well, mine was a gift from my girlfriend for my birthday a couple of years ago, but you can get it from Area 52. I think that's where she got it from.
Yeah, so. Amongst various other places. My thorn this week, Angela Lansbury, star of Mothership, passed away a few days ago, 96. My banana, Terrifier 2, this film, the article just made me laugh. So the headline is, Terrifier 2 is reportedly making people shake, cry, throw up in theaters. And then the subheading is someone's post on social media who was praising the film. And this is what made me laugh. Their post was, my friend passed out in the theater, called an ambulance, highly recommended. So
that's great.
Yeah, we'll play a little bit of the trailer for Terrifier 2. It doesn't, to my knowledge, evoke any of the passing out, shaking, crying, or throwing up symptoms that people are reporting. Yeah. But yes, for your curiosity.
So, did you figure out what you're dressing up as tomorrow?
He wants to dress up as a real guy who murdered 9 people last year.
Oh, you're not doing that?
It's just a costume. You think that guy's still out there?
What's up with you and this clown all of a sudden? You're like obsessed.
They never found his body. What if he decides to come back here?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Wait a minute, aren't you that guy from the costume shop?
Sir, what are you doing?
It wasn't me.
Oh, well, I think, House on Haunted Hill has prepared us for some of those audio cues. The kind of weird, it doesn't have a theremin in it, which a bit disappointing.
It really lost the theremin.
Or an organ. Both those two things are missing, sadly. But it did have that, like a violin chord or something being like... So, yeah, that's Terrifier 2, a film that is being hyped as causing people to shake, cry, throw up.
That's right, and I believe they have a vomit bag that they.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with the logo, little blurb of the film, which is very, House on Haunted Hill by William Castle is considered one of his innovation with cinema was props and gimmicks that he used for his horror films. So House on Haunted Hill has, in some scenes, it would have a skeleton that would fly out over the audience. Other films was like a Tingler film where some of the seats would actually have little kind of jolts. I don't know if there were jolts or anything. The chair would move. Other ones would have people from the staff from the cinema kind of dress up and kind of scare people. And we can see a little bit of the William Castle vibe in this film and the discussion around this film, Terrifier 2, with, the vomit bag. They're kind of doubling down on the marketing they know that could create.
Imagine that if they just, like, in the film, at one point, they just, like, get someone in the costume just to, like, stand in the corner.
Yeah, I don't think that could happen.
No, I think people would be very terrified.
Yeah, I think there's been some, what was it, the Joker movie had concerns around threats, violent threats being made. People were going to come into the cinema, guns or something. There have been a number of panics around cinemas today, and threats being made to people watching cinema.
Yeah, I feel like now that you'd have to actually give like a warning of some kind to be like, this film has something like that. You can never just sort of spring it on people.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, there are still haunted houses. You know, if you go to a fair.
That's true. And I guess in that scenario, if you go into the haunted house, you know that stuff is going to pop out at you and whatnot.
And look, as you can tell by this film and the vomit bags, they're kind of leaning into that, that kind of warning discussion. And I think even, what was it, the Alfred Hitchcock movie Psycho was famous for not allowing people to leave the cinema after the first 2 minutes or something along those lines. That, the fact that there was such an interesting twist in the opening act. Or going into the second act. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, well, there we go. So I'm sure there'll be more weird Halloween stuff around the corner. We're at the top of the hour, 10 minutes to 6.
That's right.
This has been Media Mothership. For the 14th of October, I've been PhD Craig, joined as always by B.A. Zeke. Hey, B.A. Zeke.
Hey.
Coming up next, we've got Adrian with You Can't Sit Down. So some great tunes to unwind after maybe some of the heavy topics we've gone through here. So keep listening to Edge Radio 99.3 FM. This has been PhD Craig.
That's right. And you're listening to Death Train by Guthrie, who's a Tassie artist.